Objection!
This Tale of Wonder is the very first Twilight Zone episode to do the Deal with the Devil arc, and it's alright. This is definitely not one of my favorite Deal with the Devil episodes, and I don't think I'm being negative when I say that the Twilight Zone has done many, many better versions of this setting. Now, there are honestly a fair few awesome concepts in this story, and some pretty cool moments, but just when it gets good, it starts to lose some steam by the end. In this episode, we follow Walter Bedecker, an obnoxious paranoid hypochondriac who stays bedridden and isolated within his own home since he fears the outside world with its disgusting diseases. In most stories with a germaphobe, the protagonist would usually be sympathetic, but Walter is not. He's a pathetic whiner who hides from the real world because he believes everything is out to get him, and he refuses to believe he's healthy.
He is also a jackass.
I believe the show wanted Walter to be a love-to-hate Tales from the Crypt type of flavor, but he simply comes across as a tad too jaded to like. David Wayne needed more oomph in his villainy. One day, Walter meets with the greatest back-alley doctor there ever was, the Devil.
Cleveland, you mind stepping out of the way? Oh, sorry.
If there's one absolute silver lining in this episode, it's the Prince of Darkness. This devil is super fun and hilariously over the top. Satan is played by the con artist from Dust, who was also mega amusing in that Old West epic. If there's any reason to watch this story, it would be for this guy. Thomas Gomez is a wicked demon, since he always has this mischievous aura surrounding him. And it's just fun to see how this dude revels in being evil. He is the best character.
I'm a squirmy little fella.
I kind of wish this guy popped up in more episodes, since he seems to have a talent for making dull stories slightly more radical. Basically, the devil showed up to this loser since he has a special deal for him. He offers Walter the chance to be immune to death. He will be immortal, perpetually youthful, and can never get killed by anything. Walter, being the dipwad he is, of course takes the deal, since he realizes that he can exploit this power for profit.
Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-chingery. Money, oh money, how I love thee.
However, the King Demon also warns him that unlike his old school demons, his contract comes with an escape clause. The client who takes his deal can use this escape clause to render their deal null and void, where they will lose the power given to them. But I don't think I'm spoiling anything when I say that, of course, the devil has a trap card in play with this. It is so obvious that the titular escape clause is something that'll allow the devil to win in the end, but the episode saves it for the finale as if we can't figure out what it means. I know this was one of the first Deal with the Devil plotlines from an old show, though my complaint is that I was kind of hoping for more, especially since this epic devil barely appears. Believe it or not, a majority of this episode is simply Walter abusing his powers. Our villain protagonist basically pulls insurance scams where he hurts himself by jumping in front of oncoming vehicles to sue the drivers, and faking injuries that would have killed mortal men. Also, he can exploit the government system for money.
What an asshole!
I will confess that I actually do love these bits where he jumps in front of a train only to come out with merely a damaged suit, and how he deliberately harms himself only to walk it off like nothing. The episode does have some marvelous scenes to show off his Superman strength. Unfortunately, this plot does lose me in the later half. After literally a few days with these epic powers, Walter grows bored with them. He apparently tires about the fact that his life has no risk anymore and doesn't like living forever, since being unable to feel pain makes his danger stunts less exciting. Dude, weren't you afraid of the world before you got these abilities? You've only been out and about for a few days, making thousands from insurance fraud. What the hell are you crying over? This change of motive feels way too fast. This episode has a weaker theme than Long Live Walter Jameson, since that Walter lived out a meaningless lifetime for eons until he realized the value of death. While this Walter only had a few days of godhood, and he's just bored now, which loses any deep depth. At this point, the episode takes a nosedive. He then starts harming himself for fun, drinking poisonous chemicals, scaring his wife, and even attempts to jump off his apartment roof for a rush. Then, he accidentally kills his wife, who tried to stop him.
Wonder what it felt like.
But rather than do anything a smart person would have done, he actually calls the police and turns himself in for murdering his wife just so he can feel what the electric chair's like.
You what?
Unluckily for him, he doesn't get the death penalty and is instead granted life in prison, which he somehow never saw coming.
You what?
You moron, what the heck did you think was gonna happen? Even if you did get the death penalty like you wanted, the authorities would catch on to the fact that you can't die. Then would be forced to give you a prison sentence for life anyway. This guy is so stupid.
Uh-oh, retard alert!
Oh, but it gets dumber. So Walter sits in jail awaiting his transfer to the big house, but despite having super strength and the ability to never die or feel pain, he doesn't even try to bust out of his cage or lead a daring escape. Or heck, even use his powers to his advantage and become the kingpin of prison. He just cries how his life is over and stops using his Superman powers completely.
Dumbass! How much of a dumbass are you?
So many points of this episode were just lost in this bad plot turn. Walter is somehow dumber than Stephanie Howard. He can seriously use the power to never die in so many ways to escape this horrible situation himself, but he never does. And I'm sorry, but what is it that Roddy always says?
You unlock this door with the key of imagination.
Well, my imagination can imagine quite a lot. While I hate Walter and do want to see him gain his comeuppance, this episode does it in such a poor way. And him angsting in prison instead of using his powers feels so forced to such a painful degree. But of course, the devil shows up and informs Walter that he can always use the escape clause to dodge this hairy mess. So Walter surrenders his immunity to death instead of using it to save his skin, where he dies and the devil drags his soul down to hell, since death caught up with Mr. Bedecker.
He sure was stupid.
So this episode tried to deliver a harsh lesson on not wasting your life and accepting death, but it's not satisfying, nor is this ingenious idea fully utilized. Escape Clause is far from the worst episode I've ever seen, but it's not very good. I totally love this concept on paper. The idea of a person who is unable to die and endure stuff like trains plowing into him is amazing. But the show doesn't quite live up to these high promises and merely speeds through to the end. The best elements of this tale are the death-defying scenes and especially the devil, since they are so entertaining and carry a pretty meh adventure.
I'm a squirmy little fella.
However, the main character is not even a love-to-hate kind of idiot, the magic feels limited, and the episode builds up to a twist you see coming a mile away. I grant this tale a silver skull. It's obvious that this was at a point where the Twilight Zone was still finding its footing, and while I do love some stuff in this, it's still a pretty generic deal with the devil plot, with a lazily written conclusion. If you still like this episode, that's fine, since it does have a grand Demon King, but the ending just soils it for me. Escape Clause had a delightful premise, yet failed to read through the fine print.
How come you?
Take your hands off me and go get your claims adjusted.
She should be pulverized.
The Twilight Zone.